Today we are looking at 5 tips to help you clean up your reverb in your mix. Now this is extremely important. We use reverb in every single project, and these tips we're going to go over today will work for any DAW, any genre or style of music. For those who don't know me, my name is Zach Edward. I'm a teacher at Cosmic Academy. We're an artist development program. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've had about 500 students come through. And these students, they've signed to some of the biggest labels like Spinnin, Toolrom, Anjuna. They've played some of the biggest shows like EDC and Ultra. And what we care about are results. And we're here to help you get them as well. So let's hop into the video and let's check out 5 ways to improve your reverb. Okay, so before we hop into the reverb tips, I think it's appropriate to show you the idea we're going to be working with. And you'll notice there's going to be a drop section and a break section, so we could talk about the reverb in both.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
All right, so if we're here to improve your reverb, tip number 1 is going to be choosing the appropriate decay time. This is something where you can't just assume the preset you choose is going to work for your sound or for your mix. In most cases, it's not. Now, there are 2 things we need to think about when looking for an appropriate decay time. We have to think about the sound itself that the reverb is going on. What is the performance of that sound? Do I have dynamic space to fill in behind that instrument? So in this vocal, we're thinking about the performance. How many words are there? How far apart are they? Do I have space for the reverb to fill those gaps? The second thing I also have to think about is what else is going on in the mix at this current moment? Is the mix busy and full? Do I have room to have this long reverb? Or do I have to go with the shorter reverb because there's more shit going on? Let's just listen to the track without any reverb for the time being, and we're going to apply it to the vocal in this instance. So
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel.
So you see that the vocal's pretty consistent. Dum 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 dum. That's constant, right? There's a lot of words, and if you think about then everything else that comes in when I unsolo this,
You got me in my feelings.
drums, leads, all those other sounds are also filling space. So I need to find a decay time that's going to interact well with the vocal performance as well as the instruments playing behind. So what I'm going to do first is send full volume to this first return channel down here, and I already have an instance of Valhalla Room on. First thing I'm going to do is get an appropriate decay time. Now I like to usually just go really long, see how that sounds, really short, see how that sounds. You're going to kind of get both extremes and you'll start to get a better idea of which sounds better. So let's try this.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got
Right away, the shorter reverbs jump out as sounding better than the long one. When I have this long decay, the reverb is getting in the way of everything else.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
The reason the shorter decay is sounding better in this specific instance is because it matches the available space I have in my mix. Because so much other shit is going on, the shorter reverb can fill into those smaller gaps and not get in the way of all those other instruments. Now, if we go to the breakdown, all of a sudden things change and there's way more available space in my mix.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings.
So in a case like this, let's have another reverb set up, and this one could be our longer reverb, because potentially we can have this decay and fill more space because that space is available in this section compared to the drop. So now in this case, we have a decay time that maybe we can get away with something longer, 5, 6 seconds. Maybe it's going to be 3 or 4. Let's try our ears again. Let's see what works.
You got got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real.
Now, let me say, you may want a short one for taste. I kind of like filling this space in a break though, really give that spacious feel. Also create some contrast. The drop is going to be very tight, dry up front. The break might be a little more spacious. So let's play around with the time and find something appropriate.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna.
So I kind of like it a little over 4 seconds. I like a little bit of that bleed over, as you go from phrase to phrase. So I think this is something that can work. Now, what we can do is just automate these to use the short reverb in the drop, the long reverb in the break. I need to first find a level that does sit well. So let me do this real quick.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings.
So maybe something like -12 here is a nice amount on the send. Now in the drop, we don't need any of that. So I'm going to automate that to turn off. And in the drop, we're going to utilize the first reverb, which was the short one.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real.
And I like that. So for here, we'll have this turn off. Now between the two, we would go from short to long. And it's appropriate for each section.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real.
Now we've catered our decay length to match the difference in dynamics and just like availability of space for where we currently are in the mix. So keep this in mind. You don't have to have the same reverb on a sound throughout the entire track, but that decay time should reflect the available space you have for your reverb to fill. All right, getting into tip number 2, what you're going to do is take your finger and you're going to click that like button. You're also going to make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future videos. Now let's actually look at the real tip number 2. Okay, tip number 2 is going to be adjusting the pre-delay. What pre-delay is literally a delay between your original signal, in this case our vocal, and the onset of reverb. So it will literally delay by, in this case, 26.8 milliseconds before the reverb begins. What's cool about this is it almost creates like a slapback effect, but it also is realistic in the sense that imagine you were in this big space, the amount of time it takes your voice to travel, hit the wall, and the reflection to come back to you can take a couple milliseconds. In some larger space, it could take a second. And what we could do is we could create that separation. Now, this is really cool because it almost adds a delay with the reverb. You can use something called a delay calculator, which will calculate this, sync it to your BPM. You could find those on Google pretty quickly. A lot of times, though, I like to just use my ear. So I'm going to do this in real time. And what you're going to first notice is the separation between the reverb and the vocal.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel.
So you hear like the reverb is trailing the vocal, almost sounds like an echo of reverb. I'm going to do this with the song playing because I do want that repetition, like the reverb, to almost echo back in a way that gels with the groove and the rhythm of the song. So I like to do this by ear and just find a number that sounds good.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings.
I like this. It's trickling behind just a little bit, creating some separation.
You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings. Don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings. Can't fight the way I feel.
So it adds a cool effect of this reverb that's almost trailing the vocal, but it also, more importantly, allows the vocal to kind of cut through and not get washed away with the reverb initially. You have the ability to try this. I always recommend, though, adjusting the pre-delay and seeing if you can find a fit that just gels with everything else going around that sound from a rhythm and groove perspective. Let's jump into tip number 3, and that is going to be EQing your reverb. There are 2 EQs I particularly like to use. That is an input EQ and a post EQ. A lot of times when you use the EQ built into your reverb, this is a post EQ, which means it's EQing after the reverb. So you're basically just EQing the reverb sound itself. The ninja move, however, is actually EQing your signal before it hits the reverb. This allows you to clean up unwanted frequencies that you don't want to actually even hit the reverb and influence the timbre of that reverb. Let's talk low end. Right? Do you want the low end of your drums, your kicks, a vocal, anything chunky and thick? Do you even want that low end hitting the reverb and influencing the sound of reverb? Of course not. It's going to make it muddy. It's going to make it sound like shit. So what we could do is we can clean up the sound of this reverb beforehand.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
So for this case, I probably don't want any low end.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the.
Now, the other thing I like to do is figure out what parts of the vocal are already really loud, pronounced, or sharp. Because if I allow them to hit the reverb, well, they're probably going to be doubled and emphasized again in the reverb. So I almost like to compensate the louder parts with a little bit of a dip so that they're also not just being pronounced in the reverb sound itself.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
Notice how clean the reverb sounds as soon as I turn on this input EQ. It makes a big difference. So we can still put another EQ after the reverb, and this is now going to clean up whatever frequencies are introduced from the reverb itself. Sure, it might reintroduce some low end. That's what this is going to be for. Let me just make sure. All right, that's off. Let's do it here.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel.
Let's listen to a quick difference of the EQs on and off.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel.
So I have lost a little bit of volume, but it sounds so much cleaner.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
This reverb sounds custom to the vocal because we've EQ'd it to perfectly fit with it. And we can also listen in context of the mix, and that's really what the post EQ is for. Make this reverb fit with the rest of the mix now.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
Let's keep this going. Tip number 4 is going to be sidechaining your reverb. This is handy when the reverb is longer, like the example we have in the breakdown, and the continuation of that reverb is starting to bleed over the actual vocal. This can, work just as well with a lead or any kind of instrument. But what's going to happen is on the actual reverb return channel, I'm putting a compressor and telling it to sidechain back to the original vocal. So what I could do is lower my threshold. And when the vocal exceeds this threshold, the reverb is going to clamp down in volume. It's going to lower in volume. When the vocal is done, the reverb will come back up. But what that's going to do is duck the reverb when the actual vocal performance is going on, and it's going to allow the reverb to not really get in the way of the performance and bleed over the performance. A little bit goes a long way here. I'm going to start super exaggerated. You're going to hear it sounds like shit. and then we'll dial in a more appropriate amount.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings.
So you could see that yellow line is showing you that the reverb is lowering in volume every time the vocal is being sung and performed. The release will be how quickly that volume pumps back up. Faster release is going to make it more prominent. Sometimes it could skip a little bit, sound a bit harsh. Slower release will smooth out how the reverb pumps back into the mix. I'd say usually medium to slower in a case like this will probably sound better.
You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real. You got me in my feelings, can't fight the way I feel. You got me in my feelings, don't wanna make it real.
It's so subtle, but what you notice is it sounds like the reverb just takes one step further away when I turn this compressor on. It creates a little more depth and separation between the vocal up front and the reverb behind it. And that's nice. That's what we want. We don't want the reverb drowning out the vocal and making it harder to hear. Tip number 5, try not to have too many different spaces in one mix. Reverb does simulate space, environment, and if you just keep dropping different reverbs with different presets on every single sound, it's like you have 1,000 spaces for your one mix. It's not going to sound nice. There's going to be a lack of continuity. By using return channels, one of the cool things is you could have 3 different depths that all your sounds can sort of share. You could have a short reverb under 1 second, a medium reverb 1 to 3 seconds, something longer 4+ seconds. You don't have to follow this, 100%, but keep in mind, the fewer reverb spaces you use, the better and more continuity the mix will have. So it's okay to copy reverbs onto different sounds and share the same space. All right, so that's it. Those are 5 ways you can clean up your reverb. If you found this video helpful, be sure to smash the like button and definitely subscribe so you don't miss the next video. We have so many videos coming and some really good topics ahead. So I'll catch you in the next one.